We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody for coming in today. Thank you. It's a beautiful day outside. We have quite a few things on the agenda, but with that, we'll go ahead and take a roll call.
Director Bond. Director Bond. Director Amen.
Here.
Director Old.
Step out for just a minute, we'll be right back.
Director Mason. Here. Director Meyer.
Here.
Director Simmons.
He stepped out visible.
Director Kozlowski. Here. Director Worsbicky.
Here.
Director Cox. Here. Director Dodge.
Here.
Director Treehouse.
Here.
Director Hohaddle. Here. Director Mattia. Here. Director Picciarelli. Here. Director Silac. Here. Director Gregoire. Here. Director Kidd.
Here.
Director Radcliffe. Here. Director Smitherman. Director McCully. Here. Director Simmons. Here. Director Old. Here.
Excellent. We have a quorum. And with
Hello,
that-
can you all hear me? This is Jane.
Yes, Jane, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. Jane, can you hear us?
She's having.
With that, well, can I have a motion to enter the executive session? pending
Motion to go
litigation?
into executive session for the purposes of discussing pending litigation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22 D3, and also for the purposes of discussing the employment of personnel pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1.
Second. All in favor?
Need a roll call.
All right, we'll do a roll call.
Director Bond. Director Amy.
Yes.
Director Old. Yes. Director Mason. Yes. Director Meyer.
Yes.
Director Simmons.
Yes.
Director Kozlowski.
Yes.
Director Worsbicky.
Yes.
Director Cox.
Yes.
Director Dodge.
Yeah.
Director Treehouse.
Yes.
Director Hohaddle.
Yes.
Director Mattia.
Yes.
Director Picciarelli.
Yes.
Director Silac.
Yes.
Director Gregoire.
Yes.
Director Kidd.
Yes.
Director Radcliffe.
Yes.
Director Smitherman.
Yes.
Director McCully.
Yes.
We're in executive session 10:30.
You're in executive session. Okay, we're out of an executive session and I would like to see if somebody could make a motion to extend Catherine's contract for another 6 months or the permanent hire of an executive director.
Mr. Chairman, I also make a motion to extend the the acting executive director's contract for 6 months or until the day of hire. The selected executive director.
And then be at the same rate, same dollars.
It said extend the contract.
Second,
Madam Mayor.
right? Any questions or discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. All right, let's just jump right into the approval of the April meeting. Are there any comments, questions, or discussion?
One correction that was noted as not being in attendance, and I was in attendance. Josh Cox region.
Anything else? We can get a motion to approve the motion. Second, all right. Any questions, discussions? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, grant software. All right, so we had originally, when we were going down this path, Jim's in the room, yeah. We originally asked the grant making committee to help pick the software. And pretty quickly, we found that not only are they not going to use the software on a regular basis, they're not necessarily experts in it. And frankly, now that we're doing meetings in person, it made it pretty challenging to do demos and other things. So what we decided to do is have Jim, Amanda, and Catherine review the grant making software with conjunction of Tom, and then make a recommendation to the committee. We did shop 5 of them. Jim can answer the questions on the cost and many of the questions on the software. But they do have a recommendation to the board and before Jim talks, would you like to add any color to that?
Sure. You recall we had a contract with Claudia Harold of Philanthropy, Ohio for quite some time before she retired. She had a significant role in giving us feedback and worked closely with Jim on that. We also asked a few members of our grant committee, that would be Jeanette and Greta, to weigh in with questions on that rather than bring it to the whole committee. We thought it was a decision the whole group needed to make, but we wanted to weigh in. So that's how we.
Good, thank you. So Jim, do you want to?
Sure,
Kind of go
absolutely.
through the software?
Right, so our recommendation is a software called Kia Go. Kia Go was the recommendation of Claudia, when she started working with the committee. In February, we did to the board a comparison of the software we were looking at. Kia Go, Fondant, and Salesforce at the time. In mid-March, sent out a requirements documents to the five companies that we were looking at: Kia Go, Fondant, Salesforce, Blackbaud, and Flux. They all submitted proposals. In April, we brought back a comparison. If you remember, a comparison, like here are the different softwares that probably cost. And the research and negotiating of these of this software, right? Kia Go is just, far superior to the cost. Salesforce, but anything that the Kia Go is 400,000. That's the implementation cost. So Kia Go, we'll be able to have regional applications, regional processes, regional reviews, customized applications, branded applications. Regions could have more than one application. Let's say they want to have an application for treatment and a separate application for prevention. They can do that, right? Kia Go is built on, and this is some technical stuff, but it's built on Microsoft Dynamics. So it has what's called an open API, which makes interfacing much easier. Most of the other software is proprietary, right? You got to go to them, get them to fix it. So this software is more flexible in that way. So it's easy, easier to adapt to growth. Sure, what we do this first year won't be the same as we do the second year and ongoing. So we need something that can grow and adapt with the changes. Cloud-based, mobile friendly. So there's a mobile app. Not for most of the other green software, right? Because it's built on Microsoft Dynamics. It has direct links to the IRS. So if it's a nonprofit's registering, it'll pull all their information from the IRS into the site. It's integrated with banking, and some of the unique features it has that others do not have is forecasting, what if scenarios. It has an investment section, right? So we can track investments in there. It's all in one. Some of the other software we'd have to buy grants, and then we have to buy the accounting and figure out how to get them to talk together. And the software uses third-party implementers, so they don't even implement the software. Somebody else, you hire somebody else. So, welcome. Any questions on anything that people would like to know? Yes.
A lot of questions from the commissioners in my region. Is there going to be like a portal that the applicants and it goes to the region? Somebody at the region has to be the recipient at the end of the portal?
Yes.
Oh dear, okay.
I mean, so one of the difficulties in putting this up is that there's potentially 19 workflows. Right? Potentially 19 workflows. Kia Go has a workflowing module that's different than the others, so it can be built in blocks, right? So if regional applications can go anywhere the region wants them to. You can go to all the reviewers, you can go to a coordinator, you can go to whoever you want. It can go to one person, they can distribute them in paper, people score them, send it back. It's pretty flexible.
So will somebody from there be available to come to a regional meeting and explain this?
Sure, absolutely, yes.
So that would be Amanda and myself. Who would be traveling to the regions or doing Zoom calls to go through the process.
And from what I understand of the softwares chosen, this is the most intuitive and user-friendly, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
If you look on the One Ohio Recovery Foundation website, there is a flow chart that explains the anticipated grant process. And that would be useful to bring to attention your individual members of your regions. So they can visually see how it's supposed to work.
We kind of looked at the flow chart, but you know, the devil's always in the details.
And that's part of the infrastructure that the regions need to put up. And, you know, everybody is unique into where they are at with their infrastructure and how that's going to work for their board. So that's a piece that is going to have to be discussed amongst your board members. And how are you going to, who is going to be the person receiving that? Is there going to be one person? Is it going to automatically go to reviewers? There's multiple processes for the regions to determine how they are going to receive that information from the applicants through the system.
Some kind of a description of the different ways that this could work, so that I'm not trying to explain something and they're going to ask me a question.
That's forthcoming. One of the things we're going to start talking about in our grant committee. Not that it's all the grant committee's responsibility, is what do the regions need from us in terms of information? What Catherine downloaded a whole bunch right there, and just further, what do we need to teach each region? Part of the decision around the software is its flexibility. Some of our regions are extremely well established. They just need to know what button to push, and then others are building now. And so we're gonna start that conversation and listen to the regions about how we can be most helpful.
And I'm already starting to get emails with questions regarding the process. So if your region has questions, please send them, because that's all going to be vetted out in developing our processes and working through with the region. So I can't come in and develop your process, but we can let you know what the process is for this system and then help you figure out how your infrastructure and process will need to be in place to work with the system.
That would be Amanda.
Amanda and myself will be working through that along with the grants committee and obviously Jim, who is, you know, on the back end of the financial piece of the software.
Always imagined a process where the regions are gonna be helping each other out.
Absolutely. And I know we have several regions. I know Director Driehaus, her region has offered and shared much of their process already. So I know that Director Mayer reached out to me to see if they could share their process as well. So regions are starting to work together, which is great, in sharing where they are at in the process.
Did you mention the costs?
Yeah, so the annual cost is 53,000. Unlimited users, limited access with the mobile app. The implementation costs, they're estimating at 35. I think that's really going to depend on what this looks like after talking to you guys. We try to describe, this is what we want, so that price will be very negotiable. Like, we can do this, you need to do that. So we'll be negotiating that. And then, you know, what happens the second year may be exactly what happens the third year. We'll probably build a standard process. Anybody wants to use a standard process, and they just have to tell us who their reviewers are, and then we can customize processes, you know, from there.
Would it be possible in this software, and I know some regions have developed their own application?
Yep.
What about if if a region just wants to request a little bit of additional information that isn't covered by the standard application, is it possible to incorporate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can brand those applications, right? You brand the applications, it has what's called branching technology, so you can ask this question. This is the follow-up question. The answer this way, this is the right. It's a follow-up based on needs. It is the only one that we looked at that really allows the budgets to be split. So I know in the grants committee, there was some discussion about how much collaboration there would be, right? But this software allows applicants to work together, so two applicants could work together, and applicants could request money from more than one group. That idea and the less expensive that they. So this is unique in that way.
Any other questions? Jim, do you have anything else to add? What we would like to do is get a motion to approve the software and the cost. So Jim. You have the cost on the training, which is included in 30.
Yes, the training for the training for the foundations, web training for like users is also.
So with the cost that Jim just mentioned, it's 88. I would suggest just for a little cushion is an up to 100 for the first year for the software. If somebody,
So training for potential applicants.
well, that's what Amanda would do, and that would be the cost of the foundation. It's already part of. We built that in.
What's the name of the vendor again?
Sequoia Go.
Sequoia.
AOYAGO.
I make a motion to approve Sequoia Go, to develop the grant software at an estimated cost not to exceed $100,000.
For a second.
Second, Grundy.
Any questions or discussions?
One question, the budgeting software embedded in this is adequate for what we're proposing, because I know the range of options that were presented last year, one of them needed a standalone.
Yes, yeah, so the software is fund management, so. All the regional allocations will be put in their fund, right? One of the things that MOU is. Money stays with the region once it's allocated, whether they spend it or not, right? Carries forward, so it will carry forward. Each region will have its own dashboard. What you awarded, here's what's been drawn down and spent of the grantees, here's performance outcomes. Here's the performance report, right? And that can be made public plus, right? Which is most of the other softwares that don't do that. You can turn that into the public sites.
Okay, so we have a person in second. All right, questions and discussions. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So motion carries. All right, the fiscal policy, we tabled that last month. So you should have had an extra month to read about it. There is the mileage reimbursement in the fiscal policy. But from time to time, we may have board members that need to come in for meetings that would require a hotel stay. I would recommend that perhaps somebody make a motion to reimburse for actual costs for that.
We need to make a motion to take it off the table.
We need a motion to take it off, the fiscal policy off the table and bring it back on the table, so.
I'll make that motion, Julie.
Very good, second. Second, to bring it back off the table.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, back to where it was. So for reasonable reimbursement for travel for board members, I would propose that we also put that in fiscal policy
It's in there.
for travel.
Um,
All right, very good.
Does this look back to prior meetings? That may not have been reimbursed in any other way.
I'm sorry.
With the fiscal policy cover reimbursement for tenants at prior board meetings?
We hadn't discussed that, but we could maybe make a motion. We could consider it. Would you like me to motion?
Yeah, we can make a motion to amend the proposed fiscal policy to allow for reimbursal of mileage expenses to attend prior meetings that had not been reimbursed from any other source.
second that motion.
Very good.
Retroactive date.
Yeah, so would be, it was a year ago. May of 22. Could be retro May of 22.
That's
Christopher, you. Not too?
Yes.
Very good. So that's a motion, but it's also a motion to approve the fiscal policy, Judge.
Yes.
Okay. And same with you, Chris?
Yes.
Here. Okay, any questions or discussions? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Investment policy. We did approve this, but we also wanted to revisit it. Don was traveling last month, but we did approve your policy, but we wanted to revisit your table. We did approve it. And I'm glad we did because Jim will soon tell you that we made over $190,000 in interest income last month. So it was a good call on the board part. That's one money that we can use for, the regions, for the state, for the government, whatever it might be. But want to open it up for any questions or discussions about the investment policy. Seeing none, I guess we don't need to do anything else. We can move forward. Jim, you want to give your financial report?
Sure. So included in the packet is the report for April. Couple things of note. One is the interest income that Larry just mentioned. So we have I think the recommendation of the board was the safest, right? Most return that we could get. So we have accounts at E and Huntington that are called sweep accounts. So they're 100% FDIC insured. So typically it's 250,000 per organization. What they do is they sweep the money out every day and deposit into 250 banks, right? That interest rate is a report of 35 percentage points off prime. So we were at 4.65 in April. We'll be somewhere closer to 5, right? With this recent rate hike. So I'm not sure. Maybe we can't do much better than that in this market. Huntington is 4.72%, and we have moved the approved operating funds over to Huntington, and they have the similar sweep account. The other thing to note of the budget is the legal. So when you guys approved this budget back in December, we were estimating the 75,000 that's for legal as ongoing normal legal activities, right? We didn't address the money that would be needed for the court issue. So I recommend that we increase that budget by an amount so that we can continue to pay legal costs to address the two court filings.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. So what did you increase the budget by what?
Well, I'm recommending 150. We have some bills from Benish now, so I'm.
Other legal expenses.
Legal expenses, the legal expenses. I think there was a question at the time and we weren't sure what those costs were going to be. Legal expenses tend to trickle months after the activity, so we're starting to get bills from Benish from earlier in the year.
So can we get a motion to increase our legal fees?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can we get a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any questions or discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Jim?
No, nothing else has changed since the previous months. I mean, we continue to be frugal about what we're spending the money on. Yeah. We're spending around 40,000 a month or so.
Very good. Any questions for Jim? Catherine, you want to give your report?
Okay, I'm also going to include item 10 as well in my report. So congratulations, board. We have approached our 1-year anniversary of this board. So exciting news. Connie and Kevin and I have been working together on what the 1-year anniversary announcements will look like. Connie, do you want to?
Sure. So we'll have a release going out next week, talking about progress that we've made, obviously very forward looking, knowing there's a lot more work to do. But we'll have that go out next week. I'm celebrating that milestone. I think it was the 16th, I think it was the 1 year. So we'll do it right around that date. We will also have our Q2 newsletter going out. We started our newsletters in January, right now targeting a quarterly. So we'll have different 1-year anniversary type messaging in that newsletter, focusing on all of the stakeholder engagement that we've been doing over the last several months, all of the groups that the foundation has been meeting with to get feedback and share information so they know the processes and what's been happening, all of the work that you've been doing over the past several months to get things ready to start distributing these funds. Kevin is going to do some filming, so we'll have some board members. Some of you have heard from us, and if you haven't yet, don't worry, we will be bothering you soon, I'm sure, to do some videos talking about the work that has been completed, and again, but more is coming, and the excitement around all of that. So lots of different things that we'll do to commemorate, and then obviously social media around the 1 year mark and progress made and work looking ahead as well.
Great, thank you, Connie. So we will continue to move forward with that. I have with Connie still meeting with stakeholders. We continue to move through that. Just some highlights. We've met with the Ohio Osteopathic Association, Mayors for Partnership for Progress, Prevention Action Alliance. We've done webinars with Ohio Municipal League, Ohio Township Association. We have several upcoming. We're meeting with the Ohio Fire Chief, Prevention Action Alliance state meeting I will be speaking at. I'm doing a webinar then with their staff as well. I'm attending a few of the region meetings this month, as well as Trumbull Township has asked me to come and speak at their Township Association meeting as well. So to date, we've spoke to approximately 60 stakeholders and regions since January, spreading the word about One Ohio and educating them on the process and where we are and where we're headed forward. We also have developed monthly meetings with Director Chadwick from Recovery Ohio in the governor's office as well. So we meet monthly with her just to keep her updated on the progress. She does tune into our meetings. So continue with that. Many of you received our message me back regarding the fact sheets that are created. thanks to Connie and Kevin, they are now on a resource tab on the website. Director Mattia mentioned that earlier about the flow process. That is one of the fact sheets that is now on the website. So check out the new resource tab that went up earlier this month. So we're looking forward to that and people utilizing it. We continue, Connie and I and Kevin continue to meet weekly. We have a standing meeting that to discuss all the media stakeholder meetings, media, how we're putting things out, especially around this 1-year anniversary. We really think this is a good time to be able to really promote that, but educate those as well. So the education piece is continuing. The expert panel.
Before we go to that, like this is. So we've told you before, Catherine has, that in June, she'll be speaking as a keynote for the opiate conference. And anybody that can attend, we would certainly welcome that. So if you're interested in attending, she's speaking on June 5th. I think at 9:30.
6.
6.
9:30.
6 at 9:30. Contact Catherine. We'll see what we could do about tickets for that.
We also will have a booth there. So if you are attending or wish to attend and wish to help sit at the booth, we would be happy to have you. So just let me know if you are interested in attending, and if you're already going to be there, if you are interested in helping out with the booth, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Moving into the expert panel, we had overwhelmingly, it was very slow to start, but we received a total of 95 applications for the expert panel. 5 of those were received after the deadline and will not be reviewed. So we have 90 applicants. So we will be starting that process. They have not been reviewed yet. We are still sorting that process, and you will see in the timeline when I get into that of when we expect to bring you the panelists that you will choose from to make your decision for those 6 slots available. So the last item I have is I attended the Opioid Solutions Leadership Network Peer Exchange in April through the National Association of Counties. I have some great principles that were brought back for opioid distribution in settlement dollars. So if anybody is interested in those pamphlets, please let me know. I'm happy to share them with you and the regions, just to give some. So just email me if you are interested in that principal use of funds. It was a very well jammed, packed, full of information. Also, NACO is another great resource to see how other counties and states are using their opioid litigation settlement dollars. So if you're not familiar with them, it's a great resource for that. Any questions on my report?
Could you just repeat that? What's the resource?
It's NACO.org. NACO.org. And they have a wealth of information on opiate settlement. Specifically, I have, and I haven't checked to see, but I have the principal use of funds for opioid settlement dollars that how they're being used around the nation.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Moving on to the timeline. Let's 1 minute, we're getting it up on the screen. Okay. So you should have those on, have it on your iPad as well. So the timeline draft is. Started out, I did a very aggressive draft and we knew that. We knew that going in January, that it was very aggressive. And that if we could meet that timeline, it was going to see dollars going back to the regions this year. Unfortunately, due to the grant process, software, learning curve, litigation, and some other factors, our timeline has now been shifted. So I'd like to go through, get down to the second page where we are at in May. So you approved today the grant software of the fiscal policy, so we're on target there. We're hoping in June that your search committee will have an executive director applications for 3 to be brought forward for approval and then send to the governor. I just put this in, I didn't check with Jim or Amanda, that maybe we would have the software purchased and we would start implementation of that software in June. Obviously, we still need to choose accounting software. July, we would be training on the software for grants. August, having the expert panel be chosen by the board of directors. Hopefully, September, we would actually be able to then announce the grant cycle for the regional grants. I'm not sure that is, I think I'm a little aggressive on that, so I'm thinking it might be October, but we're gonna shoot for September if all goes well with grants software. October, we would be looking for the RFPs to go out from the regions. Obviously that these are all going to be tentative on where we are with the grant software implementation and training. And when I talk about training, I'm talking about Amanda and I being trained on the software and Jim and getting that piece together so that we actually can move forward with working with the regions. Looking at a tentative opening of the portal to the regions in November. Having again, I still feel very strongly that we need at least 60 days for reviews for the amount of regions and applicants that are going to come through. And then looking at approval in February and disbursements of funds in March. We are at this point not looking for dollars to flow to the regions until March of 2020. And that is, again, I think an aggressive timeline that is going to be really based off of how we're able to move forward.
Any questions?
Just a question, if I'm interpreting this timeline and, you agree it's aggressive. It looks like there's only gonna be 30 days for applicants to submit their application. Am I interpreting this correctly? I would think for the first time cycle, might wanna give 60 days.
Okay.
Just food for thought.
Okay, so that would actually push us to most likely April for distribution of funds. Any other questions or comments?
Is there any reason why you can't stagger the allocations, as you review them, those that have been reviewed and recommended and cleared for funding? Put them into the next One Ohio Recovery Board Foundation meeting so that they can be approved and then as the next, so that you can get money out as quick as you can.
So that's something that the board can work on, decide on a process. Accounting purposes, that makes it a little more challenging when you're cutting checks on different months. for the process. Typical awards go out at one time, so that's something that if the board wants to stagger, they would need to, request and put that into process. Yes,
Will it be distributed by checks or by ACH?
probably ACH. And it goes directly to the grant recipient.
Yes. Would that fall under the great committee?
For the process. Is, no, I think that's, I think that's just a discussion the board has to have is, you know, do you want everything being brought and approved at one time and going out at one time? Or are you going to want things staggered over several months?
I think actually, he probably, it would be good, Tom, if you vet it in the grant making and then bring it to the board on a recommendation. That would be helpful. We'll do that.
Would these be like a one-time, you know, here's the check, go do good, give us reports what you're doing, or is it going to be like the ones I get that are reimbursements,
It is not a reimbursable.
not reimbursed?
When we talk about the process for the applications go to the state, at what point do the regions have access to the applications? Are we going to get them all at once, or are we gonna get them as they come?
So they don't come directly to us. It will be set up so that the regions, once they've vetted them, they will move them to then for review at the state. They don't come directly to us first. They need to come to the region first.
So you won't be collecting them and sending them down, those
You're setting them.
So it'll be routed.
where the recommendations go up. But as say the 501c3s apply to the portal that's set up by the state,
It will go to your region.
so they'll come into us then as they come in. Okay.
Yeah, so after the first year, I would envision that you as a region could probably get applications throughout the year. Right, so, you know, whatever our caught up time is, this timeline will change in future years. Because we're trying to fight some issues that we will have to work with, which are software training, litigation. So we'll be on a more normal path. That doesn't include applicants from applying to you throughout the year.
I think that would be difficult, though. I mean.
That's up to the
if
regions.
Regions are going to be, I mean, in our region, we talked about our review criteria for the applications, how we want to rate them. I think it would be difficult to have an open cycle, because then how are you going to know which are going to be the best applications for your region if you can't?
You wouldn't necessarily award them, you would just receive them. But that's up to the region.
And that's up to the region. That's really not a,
Maybe I missed some, the timeline was not in the board packet that was sent out.
it's in your, it's on your iPad and it's,
How do I get a copy?
I can,
I can print and send to my yeah,
we'll send it out.
okay,
We'll
thanks.
post it on the
And
website.
it'll be on the website too, but we'll send it.
Great, thank you.
We're gonna revise it to make a 2-month application period.
Yes.
Any other?
I wanna, it's hard for us to hear, I mean, I think the chamber's gotta find some microphones or something, it's hard to hear exactly what is being said. I guess Region 12 had envisioned that once we get the guidelines from One Ohio and we vet the applications within Region 12 and make appropriate recommendations. So as long as we're within the guidelines, whatever's recommended, what vetting is there then by the grant making committee or the board as a whole?
So that's where the expert panel comes in. They will be reviewing the applicants that have been elevated to the foundation for payment, making sure that they've met all the criteria, that we didn't miss anything. Looking if there's somebody stating that it's evidence-based, making sure that it is evidence-based. Those pieces. So it will be a check and balance at the state, at this level. And then the board needs to approve in order for us to make the payment.
So does that mean we're going to have a board meeting where all the applications are reviewed and approved at one meeting?
So when you get your allocation, our allocations, and I'm just gonna use 2.4 million. Is then one of the allocations that is approximate that you would be getting. The regions aren't going to have hundreds of applications unless you're awarding $100 a piece. These projects are going to be costly. And so you're probably not going to be submitting to the foundation board many applicants. So yes, they will be, you have to, as a board of directors, you have to approve to make the payments of those awards. So yes, those applicants that have been moved forward, and if there is an issue, I know that Director Gregoire, the process for if there's missing information from a region that's being worked on as to how do we send it back? How do we get the information? But you still have to, once the expert panel has reviewed it and it's brought to the board, you still need to approve it for payment. You can't get payment without this board's approval. This board is the budgetary authority for the grant process.
The holdup won't be with the board approval process, I anticipate. I mean, just doing some math, if each region submits 5 projects to the expert panel, that's 95 applications the expert panel will have to vet. That's where, the time will be spent.
And that's why there's 2 months of review.
We've also endeavored to structure an application where it won't be hide and seek for the expert, and it would be really clear. This, and that.
Right.
I switch gears. What's our process for approving the expert panel? Do we have that yet?
So we will be looking at that process over the next 30 to 60 days. That process started to be developed and then was put on hold.
What is the time frame between the close of the application cycle and the region review and then sending the recommendations to the state? What is that time frame?
So this year it's very short. It can be extended. You're looking at really from if we do the 60 days for applications. So you are looking at probably another 60 days for that piece. So it's going to depend on each region. Some regions have been talking that they're only opening for 30 days, their application process. So it's going to be up to the regions to determine how long, but this board can change this timeline. Just however you want that process to be and how long you want it to be, we'll incorporate that into the timeline. So if there's a recommendation that we need it open for 30 days or 60 days, Jeanette's already, 60 days for applications. So we need to put that process into place. These are pieces that haven't been decided yet, since we are still formulating. I mean, we're just approving grant software.
Right, and I don't have it on my screen, nor do I have it in front of me, and so I apologize, but what I'm asking you is, so you have set out a time frame for different things, and so I'm just asking, what is the time frame between, for the regions?
For the
to
regions, you're
evaluate
looking,
and send up recommendations to the state?
you're looking at about 60 days.
That answers my question.
That's in November.
October and November. You would announce in September, October, you would send out, or even September. It depends on how far. We have regions that are ready to go today, that are ready to put their RFPs out and go, and we have regions that aren't even structured yet.
Just to clarify something that you had said, and we had a pretty robust discussion about this in the grants committee. Proposed disbursements to regions of regional shares shall be reviewed only to determine whether the proposed disbursement meets the criteria for approved purposes. So it doesn't say anything in here about having the expert panel approve the projects that have been advanced by the region.
So the expert panel was developed to help in that process.
To provide guidance to the regions too, but again, if somebody submits an application for one of the approved purposes in the MOU and the region advances that, no one has the right to deny it.
This is a check and balance. Nobody's saying that they're going to deny it if it's in the approved. This is to check so that when this board comes together to vote on these projects, they can be assured that another set of eyes has gone through and made sure that everything falls into the buckets, that everything is approved in the budgetary piece. You have allocations, we have a cap on that. There's only certain percentages, so you're only getting a certain amount of dollars. So it's a check and balance to what the regions are putting forward. Nobody is saying that it will be denied. But if it doesn't meet, if there's a discrepancy, this board is responsible for
Right,
those
but
dollars
our
going out.
role in approving the projects that are advanced by the regions is only if it complies with this. That's our sole purpose.
Correct.
I just wanted that clear. And then when will the regions know what their specific dollar allocation is?
I do believe Jim has already created that document.
And when will that be shared?
Send it anytime.
Because I know my region's very anxious to know the specific dollar.
Janelle, we'll post that on the website and we'll send an email to them.
My only question is the approval, once they reach the board for approval. To be, go ahead and grant the funding. That will probably occur over various meetings. We won't be approving all of them. In one specific meeting, will there be more than each meeting? Once we start approving them, we will be approving additional ones.
So we will have to see how that process goes, how many applicants. Again, when you're dealing with $2.4 million for, let's say, 4 counties. That's not much. It is a lot of money when you're working to save lives, but when you're looking at overall projects for 4 counties. You're not going to have that many applications for that 2.4 million. So I'm not seeing an overwhelming amount of applications coming to the board.
And clearly this is still in development, but you know, given there's a couple of levels of check and balance, the board would be more of approval. Probably as a whole, rather than, I mean, certainly, almost like a consent calendar type of approval in a board meeting. But the board would have the opportunity to review them in advance. If they want to pull any of them out, they can do that. If not, we can approve it as well. So, you know, to the judge's point of 90 applications or 90, true, that we could do it all in one swoop. So make it quite easy and quite transparent, as long as we all review it prior to the meeting. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question about the RFP that in the timeline is to go out in October. Is this something that we as region should develop, or is something that the foundation develops for the region that we can use as a guide?
Yeah, so you need to develop your RFP. And I know go ahead.
The grant committee has drafted a model RFP that you could choose to use. So we'll share that shortly.
Thank you. My second question, do we want the applicants to give them access to the portal to put them in, and then we have a way to approve them before they come to the foundation? Or we don't give them access to the portal and we as a region put in a portal only what we approve as a region? I don't understand.
I think we still need some work on that.
Yeah, but I think the general plan is that, because different regions have different needs in terms of technology. We want a software that allows all these things to flow into one place where the regions can find them. And then you'll identify the ones you want to fund, and then our process starts.
The software allows either the grantees to submit or the regions to submit for the grantees. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? Yes. Dr. Rosen, do you have a comment?
Yes, I just to reiterate what Catherine was saying, the board as a whole has a fiduciary responsibility to comply with the MOU. So the expert panel, I think, is the goal of that is to help the board meet that fiduciary responsibility that the application complies with the MOU. That was my only comment, was to buttress what Catherine said from a fiduciary standpoint.
Thank you. Does anybody have any further questions for Catherine, software, timeline? Committee reports. We really haven't met since the judgment. Jeanette, you're the only one I didn't ask. Did planning committee?
Have not done.
So and Julie, you have not. So I assume are there any committees that have met? And Don, I know you have not, right? The investment committee has not met.
No, sir.
Okay.
We're waiting.
So with that, do any of the committee chairs have anything to say? Smart. With that, let's go ahead and open it up for discussion. Right. Well, we have our next board meeting on June 14th at 10:30 here. And with that, we take a motion to close.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Very good. All in favor, someone say aye.